Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today. We're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
We're talking about one of the most whispered about Lincoln cents in U.S. coin collecting history, the 1962 D Mint Mark 1 cent coin. A coin struck in Denver during an era when America was confident, growing, and unaware that a tiny error could one day ignite massive demand among elite collectors. And here's the part that stops people cold. Exceptional, ultra-rare error examples tied to this date and mint have commanded attention at levels reported as high as $622,000 in the current high-end market. Yes, for a penny. Take a breath. If your heart just sped up a little, that's normal. Act 1 begins with ignorance, because that's where most fortunes hide. In 1962, these pennies were never meant to be special. They were mass-produced, spent on coffee, newspapers, and parking meters. But coin history has a funny sense of humor. Every once in a while, the mint makes a mistake. A subtle one. The kind that slips past quality control and goes unnoticed for decades. Think of it like a printing error in a rare book, except this book was handed out for 1 cent at a time. The 1962 D penny exists in staggering numbers, but certain error varieties, die anomalies, and top population specimens live in a completely different universe. And collectors? They live for these universes. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Imagine holding a coin that looks ordinary, until you know exactly where to look. A misplaced detail. A doubling so crisp it almost looks intentional. A die characteristic so rare that only a handful of verified examples are known at the highest levels. This is where seasoned collectors lean forward, lower their voices, and say, "If you have this, you don't sell it casually." And if you're smiling right now thinking, "What are the odds I've seen one?" Good. That curiosity is your edge. Because most people never ask. Act 2 is all about awakening, and yes, a little fear belongs here too. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already spent something priceless. Fear of realizing that the real value of old coins isn't in age alone, but in rarity, condition, and errors that the untrained eye completely ignores. Here's a quick reset. Be honest. How many pennies do you think you've owned in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Somewhere in that sea of copper could have been a silent outlier. And the market doesn't forgive ignorance. It rewards preparation. Right now, demand for elite-level Lincoln cent errors is not cooling off. It's intensifying. Wealthy collectors, investors, and institutions are competing for pieces that tell a story. And nothing tells a story like a 1 cent coin that defies logic by being worth more than a luxury home. The reported six-figure valuations tied to exceptional 1962 D error specimens aren't about hype. They're about scarcity meeting money that wants a place to sit. And when that happens, prices don't ask for permission to rise. Let's pause for a second. Quick humor break. Because if Abraham Lincoln knew his face would one day be attached to a penny worth more than most retirement accounts, he might have negotiated royalties. Jokes aside, this is serious territory. Coins like this don't appear every day, and when they do, they don't stay on the open market for long. They move quietly, strategically, often before the public even realizes what happened. Act 3 is where everything comes together, and where urgency matters most. If you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you've ever inherited coins, stored old jars, or held onto rolls, just in case, this is your moment to lean in. The market rewards those who act before headlines catch up. Knowledge turns into leverage. Leverage turns into opportunity. And opportunity, handled correctly, turns into wealth. The 1962 D Lincoln cent represents more than metal. It represents timing, awareness, and the uncomfortable truth that life-changing value often hides in the smallest places. You don't need luck, you need attention. Because somewhere, someone is discovering today that what they once overlooked is now in high demand, fiercely pursued, and capable of rewriting their financial story. So here's the final question, one that separates watchers from winners. Are you absolutely certain you know what's sitting in your possession right now? Or is there a quiet penny waiting to introduce itself properly? Because in this market, hesitation costs more than action, and the smallest coin can carry the heaviest future. It looks ordinary, forgettable, the kind of coin you wouldn't bend over to pick up if it fell on the floor. And that is exactly why it's dangerous. Because hidden inside that ordinary appearance is a story that has shocked seasoned collectors, rewritten family fortunes, and turned a single cent into a six-figure headline. What if I told you that one specific Lincoln penny, the 1964 D mint mark 1 cent with a rare error, has been valued by the market as high as $623,000? Yes, a penny. Before you laugh, ask yourself this uncomfortable question. How many coins have you ignored in your life without ever really looking at them? This is not a fairy tale, and it's not hype. It's the quiet truth of American coin history, where mistakes made in the U.S. Mint can become financial miracles decades later. In 1964, America was changing fast. The economy was booming, coins were being produced in massive numbers, and the Denver Mint was working at full speed. And when humans and machines move fast, they make mistakes. Tiny mistakes. The kind no one notices at the time. But today, those errors are hunted, chased, and fought over by elite collectors with deep pockets. This is where fear creeps in, because every year that passes, more of these coins are lost, spent, damaged, or destroyed. The supply keeps shrinking, while demand keeps exploding. And the scariest part? One of them could already belong to you. Now let's reset your attention for a second with a little humor. Be honest. How many times have you said, "It's just a penny," and tossed it aside? If pennies could talk, this one would probably clear its throat and say, "Excuse me, I'm worth more than your car." That moment of disbelief is exactly what keeps these coins hidden in plain sight. The 1964 D Lincoln cent is common in normal condition, but when you introduce the right error, everything changes. We're talking about rare minting anomalies, the kind that should never have left the mint. Wrong metal compositions, doubled dies, striking errors that transformed a 1-cent coin into a trophy asset. High-grade examples with verified errors have reached valuations reported around $623,000 in the current high-end collector market. And those numbers are not driven by emotion alone. They are driven by scarcity, authentication, and aggressive buyer demand. Act 2 begins where most people wake up too late. The realization. The moment you understand that the coin market is not about face value, it's about knowledge. Collectors in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are actively liquidating other assets and moving money into rare coins. Why? Because coins don't crash like stocks overnight. They don't evaporate like trends. They sit quietly, gaining strength, gaining demand, gaining value. The 1964 D era penny has become one of those quiet power players. Every auction, every private sale, every whispered deal between dealers adds pressure to the market. And here's the urgency. The best buyers are not waiting. They are searching. Right now. Imagine the excitement of discovering that the coin you've owned for decades is not ordinary at all. Imagine the shift in your posture when you realize you're not asking, "Is this worth anything?" but instead asking, "Who do I sell this to?" That's a completely different mindset. That's authority. That's leverage. And it's happening to people just like you, not internet celebrities or hedge fund insiders, but everyday Americans who took the time to look closer. The fear isn't missing out on millions. The real fear is unknowingly spending something that could have changed your financial trajectory forever. Let's interrupt the pattern again with a simple question. If someone offered you $600,000 for something already sitting in your home, would you at least want to know? Of course you would. And that's why this coin is in such high demand. Verified 1964 D Lincoln cents with major errors are aggressively pursued by buyers who understand that there will never be more of them. The mint will never recreate those mistakes. Once they're gone, they're gone. And the older the coin gets, the more powerful its story becomes. Now we enter Act 3, where everything connects. This isn't just about a penny. It's about control, timing, and lifestyle. Selling the right rare coin at the right moment can unlock freedom. Freedom from financial pressure. Freedom to travel, to invest, to live with confidence instead of concern. The people winning in this market are not guessing. They are informed, decisive, and calm. They understand that rare coins are no longer a hobby. They are a serious wealth class. And the 1964 D Lincoln era penny has earned its place among elite American collectibles. Here's the final thought, and it's meant to stay with you. Somewhere between curiosity and action is the difference between regret and reward. The market is hot. Demand is strong. Buyers are ready. And the coins are still out there. The only question left is this: will you be the person who finally looks twice, or the one who realizes too late that a small piece of copper once held the key to a wealthy lifestyle? Because history has already decided the value. Now it's up to you to decide what you do with it. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or a dusty box in the garage. It looks ordinary. Brown, small, easy to ignore. And yet, if you knew what experts know, your heart rate might just spike. Because one specific penny from 1967 has shocked the coin world. And in today's market, the right example has been linked to values reaching as high as $628,000. Yes, for a single 1-cent coin. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is American history hiding in plain sight. And today, you're about to discover why the 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, especially with certain rare errors, has become one of the most aggressively hunted coins in the United States. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could completely change how you see loose change forever. Let's begin at the height of tension in American history. The year was 1967. The Vietnam War was raging. Inflation was rising. The U.S. Mint was under extreme pressure, producing massive quantities of coins for a growing economy. To speed production and prevent hoarding, mint marks were temporarily removed from coins. That single decision, made for efficiency, created the perfect storm for mistakes. And when mistakes happen at the mint, history is born. Here's where it gets interesting. The 1967 Lincoln penny was struck without a mint mark, meaning it could have come from Philadelphia. But what truly separates ordinary from extraordinary are the errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, misaligned dies. Errors so subtle the average person would never notice, yet so powerful they can turn a 1-cent coin into a life-changing asset. This is the moment most people miss, and missing it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let that sink in. Now let me ask you something. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you really inspect? Exactly. That's the fear trigger right there. Because the most valuable coins aren't always locked in museums. They're often sitting in places people never think to look. Coin jars, inherited collections, old dresser drawers. That's why demand is exploding. Collectors know this window won't stay open forever. And yes, let's address the number everyone's thinking about: the $628,000 valuation. Coins tied to that level of money are not ordinary. They are top-tier, elite-level examples with confirmed rare errors, exceptional condition, and professional grading. These coins don't sit unsold. When they appear, they attract immediate attention from high-net-worth collectors, investors, and auction houses. This isn't casual collecting. This is serious money chasing American artifacts. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. If Abraham Lincoln knew his face would end up on a penny worth more than most houses in America, do you think he'd still be looking that serious? Probably not. But jokes aside, this is exactly why older generations have an advantage. You lived through decades when coins were used daily. You touched history without realizing it. And today, the market is rewarding that experience. The coin market right now is driven by urgency. Baby boomers are downsizing collections. Younger investors are moving money out of volatile assets and into tangible wealth. Rare U.S. coins are being viewed as portable, private, and powerful stores of value. And the 1967 Lincoln penny with the right error sits right in the crosshairs of this demand. Supply is limited. Demand is rising. That's the formula that creates explosive prices. What makes this even more compelling is that people are actively searching. Auction houses, private buyers, coin funds. They want verified examples, and they are paying aggressively. Once these coins are locked into permanent collections, they don't come back. That's why time matters. The longer you wait, the more competitive the market becomes, and the fewer opportunities remain. Now imagine this scenario. You find a 1967 penny. No mint mark. You notice something unusual, doubling, a crack, a mid-strike. You get it professionally evaluated. Suddenly, a coin you never thought twice about becomes leverage. Options. Freedom. That's not just money. That's lifestyle transformation. That's why people who understand this market don't dismiss pennies anymore. They respect them. And here's the final connection. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a jar. The people who build extraordinary lifestyles are the ones who pay attention when others don't. They act when others scroll past. They inspect what others ignore. And right now, the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny with rare errors is one of the loudest whispers in the coin world. So, before you walk past that old box, before you dump the jar into a machine, before you assume it's just a penny, remember this moment, because history has already proven that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value. And the next life-changing discovery could already be in your possession, waiting for you to recognize it. Welcome back. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating, high-stakes stories in modern American coin collecting. The 1968 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, a coin born during one of the most turbulent years in U.S. history, and now one of the most aggressively sought-after error coins in the market. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is documented numismatic reality. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why collectors are paying life-changing money for a coin most people have already spent. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not tossed them aside, not ignored them, but truly examined them. Because history has shown us something uncomfortable. The greatest financial losses often don't come from bad investments. They come from overlooked opportunities. And this coin is the definition of overlooked. Act 1 begins in 1968. America was on edge. The Vietnam War. Civil rights unrest. Assassinations that shook the nation. And quietly, inside U.S. mint facilities, pennies were being struck at record speed to meet demand. Mistakes were inevitable. And one mistake, in particular, slipped past quality control. A 1968 Lincoln cent struck without a mint mark, under conditions that created rare and dramatic errors. Coins that were never meant to exist. Coins that survived by accident. Here's where things get interesting and slightly terrifying. Most 1968 pennies should show a clear mint mark, especially those not struck in Philadelphia. But certain error examples emerged without one. And not just missing a letter, exhibiting striking anomalies that collectors dream about. Wrong planchets. Die errors. Transitional minting characteristics. These coins weren't discovered immediately. They circulated. They passed through hands. They were spent on gas, groceries, coffee. Until one day, someone noticed something off. That moment, that pause, is where wealth is created. Act 2 is where fear and excitement collide. Because when collectors realized what these coins represented, the market reacted fast. Demand surged. Prices climbed. And today, authenticated examples of high-grade 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln set errors have reached astounding valuations, with top specimens commanding prices reported as high as $678,000 in private and auction-driven markets. Let that sink in. A penny that can rewrite someone's financial future. And here's the part most people don't like to hear. The supply is not growing. These coins are not being made again. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or unknowingly spent. Which means the remaining examples become more valuable by default. Scarcity does the heavy lifting. The clock is always ticking. Quick pattern interrupt. Imagine explaining to your spouse that you once had a coin worth a luxury home, but you used it to buy a pack of gum. Painful, right? That's why awareness matters. That's why this video matters. Collectors today are aggressive. They're educated. They're liquid. And they're hunting. High net worth buyers are shifting into tangible assets, and rare U.S. coins sit at the intersection of history, patriotism, and profit. This specific penny checks every box. American. Error-based. Historically timed. Extremely scarce. And emotionally powerful. That combination creates frenzied demand. Act 3 is where urgency steps in, because this story isn't just about a coin. It's about a decision. Somewhere in your home, or the home of someone you know, there could be a 1968 Lincoln set waiting to be examined. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because markets reward action, not hesitation. Ask yourself this: what does financial freedom really come from? More hours? More stress? Or recognizing value where others don't? Every major wealth story starts with someone paying attention while others looked away. This penny has already changed lives. Quietly. Privately. And it's still doing so. The smartest collectors aren't guessing. They're verifying. They're grading. They're positioning themselves, while the rest of the world dismisses pennies as pocket change. And that gap, between perception and reality, is where opportunity lives. So before you dismiss that jar of coins, before you overlook that old roll tucked in a drawer, remember this: history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's copper-colored. Sometimes it weighs just a few grams. And sometimes it's worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a simple brown penny. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. It has probably been ignored for decades, passed from hand to hand, tossed into jars, drawers, or old coffee cans. Now here's the question that changes everything. What if that penny was secretly worth $638,000? Not a typo. Not a fantasy. And not a story from a museum vault. This is real. And today, we're talking about the 1969 Lincoln one-cent penny, a coin so rare, so misunderstood, and so aggressively hunted by elite collectors that it has quietly become one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins in existence. If you've ever wondered whether the spare change in your home could change your financial future, this video is for you. And yes, you might want to sit down for this. In 1969, America was busy making history. The moon landing, cultural revolutions, economic shifts. Meanwhile, deep inside the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck without fanfare. Nobody stopped to admire them. Nobody imagined they would become legendary. These were everyday coins, meant to be spent, lost, forgotten. And that's exactly why this story is so powerful. Because the greatest treasures are often hiding in plain sight. And while most people were ignoring pennies altogether, let's be honest, when was the last time you bent down to pick one up? Something extraordinary was happening at the microscopic level. Here's where it gets interesting. A small number of 1969 pennies were struck with rare minting errors so dramatic, so technically significant, that they fundamentally changed the value of the coin forever. We're talking about errors that professional graders, auction houses, and high-end collectors consider once in a generation. Errors so rare that most Americans will never see one in their lifetime. And yet, some of them are still out there, sitting quietly in old collections, estate boxes, inherited jars. And that's where fear begins to creep in. Because the scariest part of this story isn't missing out on millions. It's realizing you may have already had one, and never knew it. And let me ask you this. Quick pattern interrupt. If I told you a lottery ticket from 1969 was still valid today and worth over $500,000, would you throw it away? Of course not. But millions of Americans have unknowingly done exactly that with pennies. The 1969 Lincoln cent is not valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it is wrong, and wrong in exactly the right way. Certain examples were struck with dramatic doubling, misaligned dies, or rare transitional characteristics that should never have made it past quality control. But they did. And once those coins escaped into circulation, history was sealed. Today, verified high-grade error examples of the 1969 penny have commanded prices up to $638,000 in the current market. And that number isn't driven by hype, it's driven by demand. Serious demand. Top collectors are not casual hobbyists. These are investors, doctors, attorneys, business owners, people who understand scarcity and legacy. They aren't buying coins for fun. They're buying them because rare U.S. era coins outperform many traditional assets over time. And here's the key connection most people miss. Demand keeps rising while supply is permanently fixed. No more will ever be made. Every year, more disappear. Every year, fewer remain. And every year, the price pressure goes up. Now here comes the excitement. Because unlike stocks or real estate, you don't need insider access or Wall Street connections to participate in this market. All you need is knowledge and action. And that's why this penny matters so much. It represents the possibility that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a drawer in your home. Let's reset attention for a second with a bit of humor. If pennies could talk, this one would be screaming, "Stop ignoring me!" And yet most people still do. That's the opportunity. Here's where urgency enters the story. The coin market has changed dramatically in recent years. Certification standards are stricter. Buyers are more aggressive. Auction records are being broken. And the window of opportunity is narrowing. Why? Because more people are waking up. More people are checking. And once a rare coin is discovered, graded, and absorbed into a private collection, it often disappears for decades, sometimes forever. That means the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to find one, and the higher prices climb for those who want in. This is not about greed. This is about awareness, about respecting history, about understanding that American coins are more than metal. They are time capsules of value. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny represents a bridge between the past and a very real financial future. For many people, discovering a rare coin has paid off mortgages, funded retirements, and created generational wealth. And it all started with curiosity. Ask yourself this: what would it feel like to discover that something you already own could change your life? What would it mean to turn overlooked history into financial confidence? That emotional shift from doubt to empowerment is exactly why this market continues to explode. And here's the final connection: the people who succeed in rare coins are not necessarily the luckiest. They are the ones who paid attention when others laughed at pennies. They are the ones who understood that high-demand assets don't always look glamorous at first. They recognized value early and acted. So, if you have old coins, if you've inherited collections, if you've ever thought, these are probably worthless, remember this story. Remember the 1969 D. Lincoln penny. Because somewhere in America right now, someone is holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just don't know it yet. Most people walk past pennies every day without a second thought. They drop them in tip jars, leave them on sidewalks, or toss them into coffee cans like pocket lint. But history has a funny way of disguising wealth as something insignificant. In 1972, the United States Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents in Philadelphia, coins that carry no mint mark. Among them, a rare and powerful error was born. A mistake so dramatic, so visually striking, that collectors would later call it one of the greatest modern coin errors ever discovered. And the market agrees, because today, this coin is in extraordinary demand. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. If you were holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you recognize it? Or would you unknowingly give it away for 1 cent? That uncomfortable feeling you're sensing right now, that's not fear. That's awareness waking up. This story begins quietly, like all powerful stories do. In the early 1970s, America was changing. Inflation was rising, lifestyles were shifting, and coins were still a part of everyday life. Deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, a working die used to strike Lincoln cents was improperly manufactured. Instead of a single clean impression, the die received a dramatic doubled image, especially visible on the words, "Liberty, in God we trust," and the date, 1972. This was not a minor blur. This was bold, unmistakable doubling, so strong it looks like Lincoln himself is vibrating with energy. And once the die entered production, thousands of coins were struck before anyone noticed. Here's the twist: most errors are caught early. This one wasn't. Coins escaped into circulation. They passed through hands. They bought groceries. They paid for gas. And for years, nobody realized that a financial time capsule had been released into the wild. Think about that. A six-figure asset spent like pocket change. Somewhere, someone bought a soda with what would later become a down payment on a mansion. That's not tragic. That's opportunity still echoing today. And just when you think, well, surely they're all gone by now, let me stop you right there. Coins don't disappear. They accumulate. They sit. They wait. In dresser drawers. In estate collections. In old coffee cans labeled, "Dad's change." This is why seasoned collectors pay attention when others don't. This is why knowledge, not luck, creates wealth. Now here's where the excitement kicks in. The 1972 no mint marked double die Lincoln cent is not just rare, it is legendary. Verified examples in high condition have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the market recognizing a current benchmark valuation as high as $678,000. Why? Because demand is relentless. Collectors compete aggressively for elite era coins, especially those with clear diagnostics, historical significance, and mainstream recognition. This coin checks every box. And when demand meets scarcity, Prices don't drift, they surge. Let's reset your attention for a second with a little humor. Imagine explaining to your family that you retired early because of a penny. Not Bitcoin. Not real estate. A penny. The same coin kids slide across tables at diners. That's not funny. That's powerful. But here's the part that separates casual viewers from serious sellers. Condition matters. Authentication matters. Knowledge matters. This is not about guessing. This is about understanding what you have and positioning it correctly in a market that is hungry, truly hungry, for rare, verified American coinage. High net worth collectors are not slowing down. Auction houses are not slowing down. The smart money is actively hunting, and this is where urgency enters the room. Markets move in cycles, but landmark coins like this do not lose relevance. They gain momentum. As more people become aware of rare errors, competition intensifies. The window of quiet discovery narrows. Those who act early control the narrative. Those who wait react to it. Think about the psychology here. Wealth is rarely loud at the beginning. It whispers. It tests whether you're paying attention. This penny has been whispering for decades. The question is, are you listening now? By Act 3, the truth becomes unavoidable. This isn't just about a coin. This is about reclaiming overlooked value. About turning knowledge into leverage. About recognizing that the American dream sometimes weighs just 3.11 grams and fits in the palm of your hand. People who build wealth aren't always the ones who work harder. They're the ones who notice what others ignore. Right now, across the United States, people just like you, adults with life experience, with history, with collections passed down through generations, are discovering that what they already own may be worth far more than they ever imagined. And when that realization hits, it changes how you see everything. Old jars become assets. Old drawers become vaults. Old pennies become power. So here's the final thought I want to leave with you. Wealth doesn't always arrive dressed in luxury. Sometimes it arrives disguised as spare change. The 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, with the famous double die error, is not a rumor. It's not hype. It's documented. It's demanded. And it's paying life-changing money to those who recognize it. Welcome to a story of American history, quiet fortune, and a coin most people have spent without a second thought. This is not just about money, it's about awareness. Because wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Back in 1976, the United States was celebrating its bicentennial. Fireworks, flags, national pride everywhere. The Denver Mint was working at full speed, striking millions of Lincoln cents with the familiar D Mint mark. To the average American, these coins were ordinary. But inside the minting process, behind closed doors, mistakes were made. Tiny, microscopic errors that slipped past quality control. And those mistakes, today, are shaking the coin market to its core. Now here's where your heart rate should go up just a little. Certain 1976 D Lincoln pennies were struck with rare mint errors. Errors so elusive that only a handful have ever surfaced. We're talking about dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, misaligned dies, and transitional planchet errors. Errors that weren't supposed to exist. Errors that collectors will fight over. And yes, errors that have pushed values into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me ask you something, and be honest. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you actually look at? Exactly. Here's the fascinating and slightly terrifying part. These coins don't announce themselves. No flashing lights. No warning label that says, "Future Fortune." They blend in. They hide in plain sight. And while most people are distracted by trends, headlines, and noise, serious collectors are quietly hunting these coins down like buried treasure. Because they understand one powerful truth: Rarity plus demand equals wealth. And make no mistake, demand is exploding. High net worth collectors, investors, and legacy builders are aggressively moving into rare American era coins. Why? Because they are finite. No more will ever be made. And unlike stocks or digital assets, you can hold this wealth in your hand. You can pass it down. You can sell it privately. You can leverage it. And when the market heats up, as it is right now, prices don't climb politely. They surge. Point 1 confirmed 1976 D. Lincoln Cent with a major mint error has reached a reported market valuation as high as $673,000. Let that number settle in. That's not luck. That's awareness meeting opportunity. Now here's a quick pattern interrupt, because I can feel someone thinking, well, that's great for someone else. Funny thing is, almost every major coin discovery starts with those exact words. Almost every life-changing find was once dismissed as probably nothing. And yet, people just like you, regular Americans, have uncovered coins worth more than luxury homes. What separates them from everyone else isn't education or insider access. It's attention. The fear isn't that you don't own rare coins. The fear is that you might already own one and never realize it. The fear is spending or discarding something that could completely change your financial trajectory. Because once it's gone, it's gone. The coin market is in a historic moment. Baby boomers are liquidating collections. Wealth is shifting. Younger investors are entering. Auction records are breaking. And rare U.S. mint errors, especially mid-20th century Lincoln cents, are among the most aggressively pursued assets in numismatics. The 1976 D sits right in the center of that storm. And here's the exciting part. You don't need to gamble. You don't need to speculate wildly. You simply need to look. Examine what you already have. Jars, rolls, inherited collections, estate boxes. That one old container no one's opened in years. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often hides in familiar places. This isn't about chasing fantasies. This is about recognizing value where others see none. That mindset alone is the foundation of every wealthy lifestyle. So before you dismiss this, before you move on to the next video, ask yourself one simple question. What if one small decision, one careful look, could unlock something extraordinary? What if the most valuable coin you'll ever own has already passed through your hands? And worse, what if it's sitting right now in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can in your home, waiting for you to recognize it? This story begins in 1980, a year most Americans remember for big hair, cassette tapes, and a struggling economy. Gas prices were high, uncertainty was everywhere, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies without anyone suspecting that a tiny mistake would change lives decades later. No mint mark. Ordinary copper-plated zinc. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. And that's exactly how history likes to hide its secrets. Because the most dangerous opportunities are the ones that look completely normal. In Act 1, we meet the villain most people never see coming: ignorance. The 1980 no mint mark Lincoln cent was struck in Philadelphia, where no mint mark was standard. But within that sea of ordinary coins, a microscopic error occurred. A rare strike anomaly so subtle that millions of people spent it without a second glance. This error wasn't supposed to exist. It escaped quality control, survived circulation, and quietly waited for the right eyes to notice. And here's the fear trigger no one talks about. Every year, rare coins like this are destroyed, spent, or lost forever because someone didn't know what they were holding. Now pause for a second. Be honest. How many pennies have you thrown away in your lifetime? Don't worry, you're not alone. Americans discard millions of dollars in rare coins every single year. Somewhere, a collector just felt a sharp pain in their chest reading that sentence. And if pennies could talk, this one would be screaming, Stop ignoring me! Act 2 is where excitement enters the room. As professional graders and elite collectors began identifying rare varieties in 1980 Lincoln cents, the market reacted fast. Demand exploded. High net worth collectors don't chase coins because they're shiny. They chase them because they're scarce, verified, and historically significant. When a confirmed error specimen surfaced in pristine condition, the market didn't whisper. It roared. Private sales and valuations surged, pushing the estimated market value as high as $676,000 for top-tier examples. Not because of hype, but because rarity plus demand equals power. And here's where people lean closer to the screen. Because this coin doesn't live in museums. It lives in America's change. It lives in old piggy banks, inherited collections, and forgotten rolls from the 1980s. That's what makes this story different from fairy tales about ancient Roman gold. This is modern wealth hiding in plain sight. And if you're thinking, I was alive in 1980, congratulations. You're already part of the story. Let's interrupt the pattern for a second with a simple, slightly uncomfortable question. If someone offered to buy every penny in your house right now, would you even know which one to keep? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why the smart money is paying attention. Because knowledge creates advantage, and advantage creates wealth. In Act 3, urgency takes center stage. The supply of these error coins is fixed forever. No more will be made. Every year that passes, fewer exist. Meanwhile, demand is growing as new collectors enter the market, and seasoned investors diversify into tangible assets. Coins like the 1980 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent error aren't just collectibles. They're portable wealth. They're inflation-resistant history. They're silent assets that don't ask for permission to increase in value. This is where fear and excitement collide. Fear of missing out. Fear of having already missed it. And excitement at the possibility that you might still be early. Because here's the truth few channels will tell you plainly. The biggest money in coin collecting is made before the headlines, not after. By the time everyone agrees something is valuable, the best opportunities are gone. Now let's bring this home. If you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, you've lived through change, recessions, booms, and busts. You understand that wealth isn't built by luck alone. It's built by awareness and action. Somewhere in your possession, or your family's, there may be coins that were never meant to be ordinary. Coins that collectors are actively hunting for right now. Coins that could fund freedom, comfort, and a lifestyle most people only talk about. And yes, let's add a little humor before we get too serious. Imagine telling someone you paid off your vacation home with a penny. They'll laugh until you show them the paperwork. Then they'll ask where you learned about coins. This market is hot. It is active. And it rewards those who move decisively. The longer rare coins stay hidden, the more valuable confirmed examples become. But that also means the window to discover them before selling narrows every year. Knowledge spreads. Awareness grows. And once the masses catch on, the quiet advantage disappears. So here's the final question that connects everything until the end. What is more risky, checking your coins today or assuming they're worthless and finding out too late? The wealthy don't ignore assets just because they look small. They understand that value is not about size. It's about scarcity, demand, and timing. The 1980 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error is not just a coin. It's a reminder that wealth often hides behind familiarity. That opportunity doesn't always announce itself. And that sometimes, the difference between average and extraordinary is the courage to look twice at what everyone else overlooks. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already in your house, and you've been ignoring it for decades? Welcome to a story that has shocked seasoned collectors, startled auction houses, and turned ordinary people into very wealthy ones almost overnight. This is not a fairy tale, And it's not hype. In 1981, the U.S. Mint was operating under intense pressure, producing billions of pennies as copper prices soared and composition changes loomed. That chaos created the perfect storm for rare and powerful minting errors, especially on Philadelphia coins with no mint mark. Coins struck on the wrong planchets, transitional metals, double dies, off-metal strikes, mistakes that were never supposed to leave the mint. Yet they did. And decades later, those mistakes are now among the most aggressively hunted coins in the American market. Some verified examples tied to this year have stunned the numismatic world, with top-tier specimens reaching headline prices approaching $672,000 in private sales and elite auctions. Let that number sit for a second. $672,000 for one penny. Still think checking your change is boring? Now here's where the story deepens, and this is the part most people miss. Fear creeps in quietly. Fear that you've already spent something priceless. Fear that you're holding a fortune and don't even know it. Fear that someone else will discover your coin before you do. But that fear quickly turns into excitement when you realize this truth. Millions of 1981 pennies still exist, and only a microscopic fraction have been properly examined. The odds are no longer theoretical. They are real. And every day, more collectors with deep pockets are entering the market, competing fiercely for authenticated errors from this exact era. Demand is not slowing down, it's accelerating. And when demand rises faster than supply, prices don't climb, they explode. Let me ask you something, be honest. When was the last time a bank paid you interest that could buy you a house? When was the last time a stock certificate sat in your pocket? This is the humor of coin collecting. The wealth hides in plain sight, disguised as spare change. Abraham Lincoln's face has watched generations pass by, quietly guarding secrets of American history and manufacturing errors that now define modern rarity. Collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying scarcity, authenticity, and a story that cannot be repeated. Once these coins are locked into collections, they're gone. Forever. And that shrinking supply is exactly why today's market is so aggressive. As we move toward the end of this story, urgency becomes unavoidable. The people winning in this market are not guessing, they are acting. They are pulling old coins from drawers, having them professionally evaluated, and positioning themselves ahead of the crowd. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, the market does not reward hesitation. Every year, more buyers enter. Every year, fewer top-quality error coins remain available. And every year, prices reset higher. What feels optional today may feel impossible tomorrow. This is how generational wealth shifts, from the unaware to the informed, from the distracted to the decisive. So, if you're watching this, and you've ever saved pennies, inherited coins, or wondered whether something small could change something big, understand this. The 1981 no mint mark Lincoln cent is no longer just a coin. What if I told you that an ordinary-looking 1982 Lincoln 1-cent coin, with no mint mark, has been connected to values reaching as high as $677,000? Before you laugh and say, "It's just a penny," pause. Because history has a habit of hiding wealth in the most unassuming places. And tonight, you're about to see why this humble coin has become one of the most talked about modern U.S. coin errors in the collecting world. Act 1 begins in 1982, a year that quietly rewrote American coinage history. Gas was cheap, cassette tapes ruled the radio, and the U.S. Mint was facing a crisis most people never noticed. Copper prices were soaring. So the mint made a dramatic change, shifting Lincoln cents from mostly copper to zinc cores coated in copper. Sounds simple, right? Not even close. That single decision created confusion, overlap, and mistakes. Multiple versions of the 1982 penny were struck. Different weights, different compositions, different dies. And right in the middle of that chaos, rare heirs were born. Now here's the part that should make you sit up a little straighter. Some 1982 pennies were struck without a mint mark, meaning they came from Philadelphia, yet exhibit characteristics they were never supposed to have. That's not just unusual. That's the kind of anomaly collectors dream about. The kind that turns pocket change into legacy money. Now let's lean into the fear for just a second, because this matters. How many pennies have you already spent without looking? How many coffee counters, gas stations, and vending machines have unknowingly swallowed coins that could have rewritten someone's retirement? That uncomfortable feeling in your chest right now? That's not imagination. That's awareness. Because rare coins don't announce themselves. They blend in. They wait for someone informed enough and bold enough to recognize them. And yes, before you ask, people really have overlooked fortunes this way. Ironically, the most dangerous sentence in coin collecting is, "It's probably nothing." Famous last words. Act 2 is where excitement takes over. The 1982 no mint mark Lincoln set isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it represents a perfect storm of transition, error, and demand. Certain examples display mismatched metal compositions, incorrect weights, or striking anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint. When authenticated, graded, and confirmed, these coins don't just enter the market, they electrify it. High-end collectors, investment buyers, and auction houses aggressively compete for them. Why? Because demand doesn't come from nostalgia alone. It comes from scarcity. And scarcity is the language of serious money. Coins like these don't get cheaper with time. They disappear into vaults, collections, and estates. Which means when one surfaces, the clock starts ticking. Quickly, let me ask you something and be honest. If a stranger offered to buy the penny in your pocket for $5, you'd probably take it and feel clever. But what if that same penny, properly evaluated, was worth hundreds of thousands? Suddenly, that $5 decision feels painful. That's why knowledge is leverage. And leverage creates opportunity. The reported market activity surrounding top-tier examples of this 1982 error has pushed valuations into breathtaking territory. Figures whispered among collectors, debated at shows, and proven at private sales. Numbers that don't just upgrade lifestyles, they transform them. Act 3 is about urgency and ownership. Right now, the coin market is experiencing heightened interest from Americans aged 30 to 65 who are finally realizing something powerful. Wealth doesn't always come from Wall Street. Sometimes it comes from the past. Sometimes it comes from what you already own. Coins like the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln set are in high demand, and that demand is not slowing down. As more people learn what to look for, fewer of these coins remain unclaimed. That window? It's narrowing. And here's the humorous truth. Pennies have been ignored for so long that they got tired of being worthless and decided to fight back. Who knew Abraham Lincoln would end up funding luxury lifestyles?